You no longer belong to your old life, yet you don't fully belong to the new one either. This is not a crisis. This is the final sign that your true identity is about to emerge. Right now, you're standing in a psychological space that most people never reach consciously. Everything that once fit now feels suffocating. The conversations that used to fill your time now drain you within minutes. The relationships you built your life around suddenly feel like costumes you're desperate to take off. And the version of yourself you've been showing the world feels like a stranger you can barely recognize anymore. If you're feeling this, you're not falling apart. You're waking up. There's an old insight from depth psychology that says the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. Not who your family needed you to be, not who your friends expected, not who the world found convenient, but who you actually are beneath all the adaptations, all the people-pleasing, all the emotional labor you've been carrying since childhood. And for the empath, this becoming isn't gentle. It's a complete psychic reorganization. You've probably noticed the symptoms already, even if you haven't named them yet. You lie awake at 3 in the morning with a restlessness that seems to rise from your bones, not your mind. You catch yourself staring out of windows, feeling like you're supposed to be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. Your dreams have become vivid, almost mythic, filled with symbols and images you can't quite interpret, but know are important. Certain people who used to feel like home now feel like strangers. And certain strangers now feel strangely familiar, as though you're finally meeting people who speak your actual language. This isn't random. This is what happens when the deeper self, the one that's been buried beneath years of survival mechanisms, finally says enough. It stops whispering and starts demanding. It stops asking permission and starts reclaiming territory. For so long, you believed your sensitivity was who you are. You were told you feel too much care, too much sense, too much. And you accepted that identity because it was the only explanation anyone gave you for why the world felt so overwhelming. But here's what nobody told you. Your sensitivity was never the core of your identity. It was the veil. It was the membrane through which something far deeper was trying to reach the surface. What's emerging now is not another version of the accommodating, self-sacrificing empath everyone got used to. What's emerging is the sovereign self, the part of you that has been watching from beneath the surface your entire life, waiting for the moment when you were finally strong enough to meet it, and that moment is now. This video isn't going to help you go back to who you were. It's not going to teach you how to manage your sensitivity better or set healthier boundaries while still playing the same exhausting roles. This video is going to guide you through something far more profound. The death of the false self and the emergence of the identity that has always been yours, but was never allowed to live. We're going to walk through exactly what's happening in your psyche right now. Why this collapse feels terrifying and liberating at the same time. Why your nervous system is suddenly refusing to tolerate things it managed for years. And most importantly, how to move through this transformation consciously instead of being dragged through it in confusion. Because here's the truth. 90% of what you've called empathy your entire life was actually something else. It was hypervigilance. It was chronic fawning. It was inherited emotional contracts you signed as a child without even knowing you were signing them. You learned early that to survive, you had to read every room, manage every mood, absorb every tension before it exploded. You became the emotional thermostat in your family, your friendships, your relationships. And every time you adjusted the temperature for someone else, you stepped further away from your own center until your outer life became a series of masks, more familiar to you than your actual face. That's why this transition feels like both freedom and grief. You're not just changing, you're remembering. You're reclaiming what was exiled. You're integrating what was fragmented. And the psyche doesn't reorganize quietly. It reorganizes through disturbance. If this already resonates with something ancient inside you, something that's been waiting for permission to finally rise, then let this video be that permission. Subscribe and like so this message can reach other souls standing at this exact same threshold. Because what you're about to experience isn't meant to be walked alone. The empath awakening era isn't coming. It's already here, and you're standing right at its center. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your body right now. Because this isn't just an emotional shift. It's a complete nervous system rebellion. For years, maybe decades, your autonomic nervous system has been running on a setting that was never meant to be permanent. You've been living in a state of constant environmental scanning where your body treated other people's emotions like incoming threats that needed to be detected and managed immediately. Your nervous system learned to prioritize everyone else's regulation over your own. Think about what this actually looked like in your daily life. You walked into rooms and immediately assessed who was upset, who was tense, who needed attention. Before you even said hello, your body was already working, adjusting already, preparing to manage whatever emotional weather was present. You learned to become smaller when someone's ego felt fragile. You learned to become brighter when someone's sadness felt too heavy. You learned to disappear entirely when conflict arose. This wasn't a conscious choice. This was your nervous system trying to keep you safe in environments where emotional volatility felt life-threatening. And for a child, it was. When your survival depends on the adults around you, their emotional stability becomes your responsibility, even though it should never have been. So your body learned. It learned to detect micro-expressions. It learned to sense tension before it became visible. It learned to feel the shift in energy when someone walked into a room. And it used all that information to help you navigate, to help you survive. And it worked. Until now, what you're experiencing right now is your body finally withdrawing its consent. It's saying, I will not do this anymore. I will not absorb chaos I didn't create. I will not regulate nervous systems that refuse to regulate themselves. I will not betray my own needs to maintain false peace. This shows up in ways that might be scaring you. Suddenly, you can't tolerate the same chaotic environments you used to navigate effortlessly. Conversations that used to just exhaust you now feel physically unbearable. You find yourself needing to leave rooms, end calls, cancel plans with an urgency that feels almost primal. Your body is choosing itself before your mind even catches up. You might be feeling an exhaustion that sleep doesn't touch. Emotional flashbacks rising without clear triggers. A strange intolerance to noise, to crowds, to small talk. Your body might be saying no in 100 different ways, and you're finally starting to listen. This isn't failure. This is your nervous system's final refusal to abandon you. What's collapsing right now are the emotional contracts. These are the unconscious agreements you made, usually before you were even 10 years old, about how you needed to show up in order to be safe, to be loved, to be allowed to stay. These contracts sound like this. I will manage your emotions so you won't abandon me. I will stay small so you can feel big. I will sense danger before it arrives so we stay safe. I will absorb your pain so you don't have to feel it. And here's what makes these contracts so insidious. They were written by a child who didn't have any other options. That child was doing the best they could with the awareness they had. But you're not that child anymore. And the psyche knows it. So now, decades later, you're starting to see these contracts clearly for the first time. You're recognizing the exact moment in conversations when you shapeshift to match someone else's energy. You're noticing when you're about to say yes, but every cell in your body is screaming no. You're catching yourself mid-sentence, realizing you're explaining yourself to someone who has no right to an explanation. This awareness is the first crack in the foundation of the false self. And once that crack appears, it spreads fast. There's a principle in depth psychology that says in all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. What feels like your life falling apart is actually your psyche reorganizing itself around a truer center. The false structures have to dissolve before the authentic ones can emerge. Think of it like this. You've been living in a house that was built to someone else's specifications. The rooms were arranged to accommodate their needs, their comfort, their vision, and you've been trying to live in that house your whole life, constantly bumping into walls, crouching in spaces too small, silencing your footsteps so you don't disturb the foundation. But now the house is shaking. Not because it's strong, because it was never meant to hold you. And your psyche, the deepest part of you, is finally saying, we're not renovating. We're rebuilding from the ground up. This process has a name in psychoanalysis. It's called the return of the repressed. Everything you pushed down, everything you exiled, everything you convinced yourself you didn't need, it's all coming back now. Not to punish you, to complete you. You might be noticing that your dreams have become strangely vivid. You're seeing symbols you haven't seen in years. Animals, ancestors, strangers with eyes that feel familiar. Landscapes that feel mythic, primordial, like they belong to some older version of reality. These aren't random images. They're the language of your unconscious trying to communicate something your waking mind hasn't fully grasped yet. The psyche is preparing you for what's coming. It's showing you that the parts of yourself you thought were lost are actually just waiting for you to be ready to meet them. And here's how you know this is real emergence, and not just another breakdown disguised as growth. There are 3 unmistakable symptoms. First, your relationship to people is clarifying with surgical precision. You're suddenly able to see dynamics you were previously inside of. You recognize projection the moment it happens. You sense manipulation before the sentence is even finished. You feel the weight of expectations that were never yours to carry. It's like someone turned on a light in a room you've been navigating in the dark your whole life. Second, you're craving solitude in a way that doesn't feel like withdrawal. It feels like homecoming. You're not running from people. You're running toward yourself. And that solitude isn't empty. It's full of thoughts you've never had space to think, full of feelings you've never had permission to feel, full of a presence you're just starting to recognize as your own. Third, your tolerance for shallow interaction has completely evaporated. You used to be able to smile through surface-level conversations, nod through performative friendships, show up for gatherings that meant nothing to you. Now you can't. It's not that you're being difficult. It's that your psyche has reallocated your energy. It's no longer available for anything that doesn't feed your actual life. If you're experiencing all 3 of these, you're not regressing. You're not isolating. You're not becoming cold or detached. You're entering the phase where your true identity is preparing to emerge. And everything that can't survive that emergence is falling away on its own. This is the process of childhood wound healing that depth psychology has been mapping for over a century. The wounds you received as a child, the ones that taught you to abandon yourself, to prioritize everyone else's emotional weather, to become a mirror instead of a source, those wounds are finally being addressed. Not by numbing them, not by managing them better, but by integrating them into a larger, more conscious version of who you are. And integration requires one thing above all else. It requires you to stop running from the parts of yourself you've been taught to fear. Which brings us to the shadow. The shadow is rising. And I need you to understand what that actually means, because the word shadow has been so misused that most people think it's synonymous with evil or darkness or the worst parts of themselves. It's not. The shadow is simply the part of you that you had to exile in order to survive. For the empath, that exile was massive, because the environments you grew up in couldn't tolerate your full self. They needed you small. They needed you porous. They needed you accommodating. So the parts of you that were too big, too intense, too powerful, you learned to bury them so deep, you forgot they existed. Let me be specific about what this looked like. Maybe you had a moment as a child when you expressed anger and saw fear in your parents' eyes. Or maybe you saw them withdraw their love until you apologized for feeling what you felt. And in that moment, your psyche made a decision. Anger is not safe. Anger will get me abandoned. I need to bury this. Or maybe you spoke a truth that made someone uncomfortable. You said something you observed, something you sensed, something you knew. And instead of being heard, you were told you were too sensitive, too intense, making things up. And your psyche learned my intuition threatens people. My perception makes them uncomfortable. I need to pretend I don't see what I see. Or maybe you wanted something just for yourself. You expressed a desire, a need, a preference, and you were called selfish. You were told that good people don't ask for things. Good people give. And your psyche absorbed that lesson. My desires are wrong. Wanting is bad. I should only exist to serve others. These weren't one-time events. They were patterns, repeated messages that trained you to exile the most powerful parts of yourself. But the psyche never forgets. Right now, those parts are coming back. And it might feel destabilizing, even frightening, because you're encountering aspects of yourself you've spent your whole life avoiding. But here's what you need to know. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your power in exile. And what the empath's shadow contains is staggering. It contains your anger. The anger you were never allowed to express because someone might leave if you showed it. The anger that knows exactly where you were violated, diminished, used. That anger isn't destructive. It's diagnostic. It's showing you every place you need to establish sovereignty. It contains your instinct, the gut feeling you learned to doubt because trusting it would have meant challenging the people you depended on. That instinct is your soul's compass. It sees truth before your mind gathers evidence. It knows who's safe and who's performing safety. It knows which environments will nourish you and which will drain you. And it's been trying to reach you for years. It contains your desire, not what other people need from you, what you actually want. The desires you suppressed because wanting something for yourself felt selfish, felt too much, felt like a betrayal of your role as the eternal giver. And it contains your voice, the words you swallowed, the truths you edited, the confrontations you avoided, the authenticity you performed instead of embodied. Your voice is an act of psychic reclamation, and the shadow is holding it until you're ready to take it back. These aren't flaws returning to sabotage you. These are gifts returning to complete you. This is the heart of shadow integration psychology. You cannot become whole by only accepting the parts of yourself that are easy to love. You become whole by retrieving the parts you were taught to exile. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. The energy you've been using to repress those parts becomes available for your actual life. You might be noticing symptoms of this return. Sudden rage at things you used to tolerate. Intrusive thoughts about walking away from relationships, jobs, entire chapters of your life. Fantasies of confrontation. Unexpected creative urges. Sexual or primal energy returning after years of feeling disconnected from your body. Don't pathologize this. Don't try to manage it away. These are not symptoms of breakdown. They're symptoms of breakthrough. Your psyche is thawing, and everything that was frozen is starting to move again. But here's where it gets even deeper. As the shadow rises, something else awakens. The inner witness. The witness is the part of you that can observe your own life without being consumed by it. For most of your life, you've been inside your emotional experience, drowning in it, swept up in every current. But now slowly, you're starting to gain altitude. You're starting to see patterns you were previously tangled in. You notice how you shapeshift in different relationships. You see how you carry wounds that don't belong to you. You recognize the moment you're about to abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And most importantly, you see that these patterns aren't who you are. They're what you learned. This is the birth of what we might call sovereign empathy. You're no longer absorbing emotions, you're perceiving them. You're no longer losing yourself in other people's inner worlds. You're remaining rooted in your own while still being able to sense theirs. It's the difference between being the ocean that drowns in itself and being the lighthouse standing at the shore. You can see the waves. You can understand the storm. But you're not swept away by it. This shift is the foundation of empath empowerment. You're reclaiming the distinction between compassion and self-abandonment, between intuition and enmeshment, between generosity and self-erasure. And with this reclamation comes grief. You're going to mourn. You're going to mourn the years you lived as a fraction of yourself. The relationships you stayed in long after your soul left. The versions of you that contorted and compromised to maintain connections that were always one-sided. The child who learned that love meant erasing their own needs. This grief is not a sign that you're going backward. It's a sign that you're integrating. The psyche has to mourn what it's releasing before it can fully embrace what's emerging. This is emotional rebirth. And all birth involves letting something die. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself sit in the strange, sacred sadness of recognizing how long you've been gone from yourself. Because that grief is also reunion. You're crying for the part of you that's finally coming home. As this mourning moves through you, you might notice something else happening. A quiet death. The false self is dissolving. This isn't loud. There's no explosion, no dramatic collapse. It's more like watching a costume slowly fade until one day you realize you're not wearing it anymore. The identity you built to survive, to be accepted, to avoid abandonment, it's losing its grip. And underneath your original face is starting to show. You'll know this is happening when you notice that the mask feels heavier than the truth. When performing who you used to be becomes more exhausting than just being who you are. When the fear of rejection becomes less terrifying than the reality of self-betrayal. The false self dies quietly, but its death makes space for something that's been waiting your entire life. Your true identity. And with it, a set of archetypal energies that are beginning to activate in your psyche. If you've been feeling a strange sense of destiny lately, as though something larger than your personal story is moving through you, you're not imagining it. You're encountering the archetypal dimension of your own transformation. There are certain universal patterns that live in the deepest layers of human consciousness. And for the empath who's ready to emerge, 3 of these archetypes become particularly active. The first is the wounded healer archetype. This is the recognition that you were wounded in the exact places where you would later develop the capacity to help others heal. Your sensitivity wasn't a curse, it was an antenna. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You descended into emotional depths most people never touch, not because you were weak, but because you were being forged. But here's the critical shift. The wounded healer doesn't heal others at the expense of themselves. They heal themselves first, and in doing so, they become living proof that transformation is possible. The second is the mystic observer. This is the part of you that perceives the hidden architecture of reality. You see patterns in people's behavior before they're aware of them. You sense the symbolic beneath the literal. You recognize when someone is speaking from their wound instead of their truth. This isn't mystical fantasy. It's psychological perception that's been sharpened through years of having to read emotional climates for survival. But now, instead of using that perception to manage everyone else, you're using it to navigate your own life with clarity. The third is the sovereign. This is the energy of inner authority. The part of you that answers to the self, not the collective. The part that can stand in a room full of expectations and remain unmoved. The part that knows its own truth and doesn't need external validation to confirm it. This archetype is what ends the emotional contracts. It's what allows you to say no without guilt. It's what makes you unshakable in the presence of manipulation. It's the energy that says, I belong to myself now. These aren't roles you're trying to play. They're energies that are activating in you because you're finally ready to hold them. And as they activate, you might notice synchronicities increasing, strange moments of clarity about your life's direction, a sense that you're being guided by something deeper than your conscious mind. This is the psyche aligning. This is what happens when the many fragmented parts of you start reorganizing into a coherent whole. And that wholeness has been the goal of this entire journey. Because the Empath Evolution 2025 isn't about becoming more sensitive. It's about becoming more sovereign. It's about integrating everything you've been carrying in separation, the light and the shadow, the wound and the wisdom, the child and the sage, and allowing them to function as one unified self. And once that integration begins, you can't go back. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you've reclaimed. You can't return to the version of yourself that lived in exile from your own power. Now the question becomes, how do you walk through this consciously? How do you integrate instead of fracture? How do you move through this emergence without getting lost in it? That's what we're going to do next. Integration doesn't happen by accident. It happens through practice, through daily choices, through small, consistent acts of returning to yourself. So let's get practical. Let's talk about the exact tools you need to navigate this transformation consciously. These aren't abstract concepts. These are practices you can start using today to separate what's yours from what you've been carrying for everyone else. Every evening before you go to sleep, ask yourself these 4 questions. Write them down. Answer them honestly. First question: what did I feel today that was actually mine? This is harder than it sounds because empaths are so used to absorbing the emotional atmosphere around them that they often can't distinguish their own feelings from everyone else's. So when you ask this question, scan your body. Notice where each emotion lives. Your emotions have a specific signature in your body. Absorbed emotions feel different. They feel foreign. They sit in your chest, your throat, your stomach, but they don't quite belong there. Here's how to tell the difference. Your own emotions usually have a story attached. You can trace them back to something specific that happened to you. Absorbed emotions often feel nameless, sourceless. They just arrived. One moment you were fine, the next moment you're anxious or sad or angry, and you can't quite explain why. Your own emotions also have a rhythm. They rise, they peak, they fall. Absorbed emotions tend to be more constant, more ambient. They hover like weather you can't escape from. And your own emotions respond to processing. When you acknowledge them, name them, feel them, they shift. Absorbed emotions don't budge because they're not yours to process. They belong to whoever you absorbed them from. Start tracking this. Start recognizing the difference between resonance and intrusion. Resonance feels like recognition. Intrusion feels like invasion. Second question: what emotion did I absorb from someone else today? Identify the moment it happened. Who were you with? What were they feeling? And at what exact point did their emotion become yours? The more you name this, the more conscious you become of the pattern. And consciousness is the first step toward breaking it. Third question: what boundary did I betray today? Where did you say yes when you meant no? Where did you stay in a conversation that was draining you? Where did you perform enthusiasm you didn't feel? Where did you explain yourself to someone who had no right to an explanation? Don't judge yourself for this. Just witness it. Because every time you witness a betrayal, you're less likely to repeat it. Fourth question. What part of my shadow tried to speak today? Did anger rise and you pushed it down? Did your instinct tell you something wasn't right and you ignored it? Did you want to say something true and you swallowed it? Instead, the shadow speaks every day. But most people silence it before they even register what it's trying to say. Start listening. Start giving it space. Because the shadow isn't trying to destroy your life. It's trying to protect it. These 4 questions are the foundation of trauma recovery at the psychological level. You're training yourself to become conscious of patterns that have been running on autopilot for decades. And consciousness is the only thing that has the power to change them. Now here's a ritual you can do to release the emotional contracts we talked about earlier. This is an act of active imagination, a practice that bridges the conscious and unconscious mind. First, identify one contract you know you've been living under. Write it out in a sentence. It might sound like this. I will carry your pain so you won't leave me. Or I will stay small so you can feel needed. Or I will manage everyone's emotions so chaos doesn't erupt. Second, feel where that contract lives in your body. Does it sit in your chest, your throat, your gut? Notice the sensation. Don't try to change it, just acknowledge it. Third, write a letter to that contract. Tell it that you're releasing it. Explain that it was made by a child who didn't know any better, who was just trying to survive. Thank it for protecting you when you had no other options. And then say clearly and firmly, I am no longer that child. I release this agreement. Fourth, burn the letter. Do it safely. Watch the smoke rise. This is symbolic, but symbols matter to the psyche. You're communicating with the deeper layers of yourself in the only language they truly understand. Fifth, fill the space with a new statement. Write it down and say it out loud. I am sovereign. I choose where my energy goes. I belong to myself. This ritual isn't magic. It's psychology. You're making the unconscious conscious through symbolic action. And the more you do this, the more the old contracts lose their grip. Now let's talk about what happens when archetypal energies start activating, because this can feel overwhelming if you don't know how to ground it. There's a difference between channeling an archetype and being possessed by it. Channeling means you're aware that this energy is moving through you, but you're still rooted in your human self. Possession means you've inflated, you've started believing you are the archetype, and you've lost your grounding. Here are 3 warning signs of inflation. First, you start feeling chosen or special, like you've been selected for some cosmic mission and everyone else is asleep. Second, you begin dismissing other people as unconscious, unawakened, or beneath your level of awareness. Third, you lose practical function in your daily life. You can't hold a conversation, pay your bills, or show up for basic responsibilities because you're too busy feeling transcendent. If you notice any of these, you've crossed into inflation. And the fix is simple. Ground yourself immediately. 3 deep breaths into your belly. Feel your feet on the floor. Say out loud, I am channeling this energy, not possessed by it. I am a human being having an archetypal experience, not an archetype having a human experience. This brings you back into your body, back into humility, back into presence. Healthy integration looks different. It looks like increased capacity for paradox. You can hold opposites without needing to resolve them. You can feel compassion for someone without feeling compelled to fix them. You can be deeply spiritual and deeply practical at the same time. You can honor your wounds without being defined by them. It looks like being grounded in your body and present in the moment, even when archetypal energy is active. You're not floating above your life. You're standing firmly in it. And it looks like wisdom without arrogance. You know things. You've walked through things. But you don't use that knowledge to elevate yourself above others. You use it to navigate your own path with clarity. Now let's talk about energy reclamation. Because one of the biggest shifts that happens during emergence is the moment you realize how much of your energy is still scattered across old relationships, old situations, old versions of yourself that no longer exist. This is a 21-day practice. You're going to bring all that energy home. Week 1 is recognition. Sit down with a journal and make a list. Where is your energy still out there? Are you mentally rehearsing conversations with people you haven't spoken to in years? Are you replaying situations over and over, rewriting them in your mind? Are you still explaining yourself to people who are no longer in your life? Write it all down. Make the unconscious conscious. Week 2 is withdrawal. Every day for 7 days, do this visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine golden threads extending from your heart and solar plexus out into the world, connecting you to all those people and situations you listed. See them clearly, and then gently, one by one, pull those threads back into your body. Say out loud or in your mind, I call my energy home. I release what is not mine. I reclaim what is. Feel the energy returning. Feel yourself becoming more solid, more present, more here. Week 3 is circulation. Now that your energy's back, what are you going to do with it? Don't let it leak out again. Circulate it through your own life. Pour it into creative projects. Rest deeply. Spend it on people who actually nourish you. Use it for spiritual practice, for healing, for building the life you're finally ready to claim. This practice is the practical expression of empath empowerment. You're learning that your energy is yours. It's not community property. It's not available to anyone who demands it. It's sacred, and you get to choose where it goes. Finally, let's talk about solitude, because you're going to need it, not as escape, as integration. The psyche reorganizes in silence. It can't do the deep work of transformation while you're constantly consuming information, managing other people's emotions, or performing for an audience. It needs space. It needs stillness. It needs you to stop running long enough for the deeper self to emerge. Here are 3 practices to make solitude sacred. First, 10 minutes of morning silence. Before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone, before you consume any external input, sit with yourself. Coffee or tea. Silence. Let your psyche speak first. Let your own thoughts be the first voice you hear each day. Second, dream journaling. Keep a notebook by your bed. The moment you wake up, before you move, write down anything you remember from your dreams. Images, feelings, symbols. Don't try to interpret them yet. Just record them. Over time, patterns will emerge. Your unconscious will start speaking more clearly because it knows you're finally listening. Third, walking meditation. Go for a walk with no destination, no podcast, no music, no agenda. Just walk. Feel your body moving. Notice what catches your attention. The psyche often communicates through synchronicity, and synchronicity speaks through your environment when you're present enough to notice. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's the space where the false self dissolves and the true self emerges. It's where you remember who you are when no one is asking you to be anything else. And as you practice this, as you make space for yourself, you're going to notice your relationship patterns changing. You're no longer attracted to chaos disguised as chemistry. You're no longer drawn to people who need you to fix them. You're no longer magnetized to relationships that require you to shrink. You know what's interesting? Before this emergence, you probably found stable people boring. You mistook drama for depth. You confused intensity with intimacy. You thought that if a relationship wasn't consuming you, it wasn't real. That's because your nervous system was wired to recognize love through the same patterns you learned in childhood. If it didn't feel chaotic, if it didn't require you to prove yourself, if it didn't demand that you earn your place, then it didn't feel like home. But now something's shifting. Your nervous system is recalibrating. And suddenly the people who used to feel exciting start feeling exhausting. The relationships that used to feel deep start feeling shallow. Because you're realizing that drama isn't depth, volatility isn't passion, and needing you isn't the same as loving you. Instead, you start craving something you might not have experienced much before. Spaciousness, reciprocity, authenticity, depth without drowning. You'll know a relationship is aligned when it doesn't require you to betray yourself to maintain it. When your boundaries are respected without you having to fight for them. When you can show up fully and the other person doesn't feel threatened by your wholeness. When there's room for both of you to be complex, to be human, to be imperfect without the relationship collapsing. These relationships feel different. They feel oxygenated. They feel like you can finally breathe. And the ones that don't feel this way, you'll start releasing them. Not with anger, not with drama, just with quiet, clear recognition that this connection no longer serves your emergence. You're not being cold, you're being sovereign. And sovereignty means protecting the space where your true self is finally being born. This is the integration phase of your emergence. This is where everything you've learned, everything you've reclaimed, everything you've integrated starts to become your lived reality. And on the other side of this integration is something you've been moving towards your entire life: wholeness. You'll know you've arrived when your presence starts changing rooms without you saying a word. People will sense something in you they can't quite name. It's not confidence, it's not charisma, it's not performance, it's wholeness. And wholeness has a frequency that the nervous system recognizes instinctively. You'll notice it in small moments. The way people suddenly start telling you the truth without you asking. The way manipulators sense you're not an available target and move on before even trying. The way certain individuals become uncomfortable around you for no reason they can name, because your integration reflects back everything they're still repressing. And the way others, the ones who are ready, seem to find you through synchronicity. They appear in your life as though they were waiting for you to become this version of yourself. And the recognition between you is immediate. You'll stop explaining yourself. You'll stop defending your choices. You'll stop negotiating your boundaries. Your truth will simply exist, and it won't need external validation to confirm it. This doesn't mean you become rigid or closed. It means you become clear. There's a difference between defending and declaring. Defense comes from insecurity. Declaration comes from knowing. And you've moved into knowing. You'll notice this when someone challenges you, and instead of scrambling to justify yourself, you simply observe their discomfort. You'll feel a strange stillness where there used to be panic. You'll recognize that their need for you to be different isn't your emergency anymore. Manipulation will slide off you like water off glass. You'll see it coming from a mile away. You'll recognize projection the moment it's aimed at you. And instead of absorbing it, instead of internalizing it, instead of wondering if maybe they're right, you'll just observe it. You'll see it for what it is. Someone else's unintegrated shadow trying to find a home in you. And you'll refuse. Not with aggression, just with clarity. Your intuition will become immediate. You won't second guess it anymore. You won't talk yourself out of it. You won't need 3 people to confirm what you already know. You'll trust the knowing the moment it arrives. And that trust will guide you through situations that used to paralyze you with indecision. You'll start noticing how your body speaks before your mind catches up. That subtle tightening in your chest when someone's lying. that warmth in your solar plexus when something's aligned, that heaviness in your gut when you need to walk away. These aren't random sensations. They're your instinct communicating in the only language it knows. And you'll finally stop betraying those signals. You'll stop saying yes when your body is screaming no. You'll stop staying in conversations your nervous system is trying to exit. You'll stop giving people the benefit of the doubt when every cell in your body is waving red flags. This is what it means to be embodied. Not just intellectually understanding that you have a body, but actually living in it, trusting it, letting it guide you through a world that your mind alone could never navigate safely. Solitude will stop feeling like exile and start feeling like homecoming. You'll crave it. You'll protect it. Because it's the space where you get to be completely yourself, without translation, without performance, without adjustment. And your creativity will flow. Not because you're trying, but because you're finally unblocked. All the energy you used to spend repressing parts of yourself, managing other people's emotions, performing roles that weren't yours, that energy is now available. And it pours into your life like a river that's been dammed for decades, suddenly breaking free. You'll occupy your body fully. You won't dissociate anymore. You won't float above your life observing it from a distance. You'll be here, present, grounded, alive in your own skin in a way you haven't been since you were a child. This is what wholeness feels like. Not louder, clearer, not harder. Rooted, not protected by walls. Sovereign in your own presence. And with this wholeness comes a completely new relationship with power. For most of your life, power meant something dangerous. It meant control, domination, harm. You saw power in its most distorted forms, and you wanted nothing to do with it. So you made yourself small. You made yourself safe by making yourself powerless. But that's not what power actually is. Real power is presence. It's clarity. It's the ability to remain yourself in any environment, with any person, under any pressure. Real power is knowing who you are, and not abandoning that knowing when someone else wants you to be different. And your power as an emerged empath is unlike anything most people will ever encounter. You perceive the unconscious patterns in people and systems. You see the wound driving the behavior. You recognize manipulation before the sentence finishes. You sense the energy beneath the words. You know when someone is speaking from their trauma and when they're speaking from their truth. This isn't a superpower. It's a skill you developed through years of having to read emotional climates to survive. But now, instead of using that skill to manage everyone else's inner world, you're using it to navigate your own life with precision. And here's what makes you particularly powerful. You've walked through your own shadow. You've met your own darkness. You've integrated what most people spend their entire lives running from. So when you encounter shadow in others, you don't recoil. You don't absorb it. You don't try to fix it. You simply recognize it. This recognition is what makes you immune to most forms of psychological manipulation. Because manipulation works by activating someone's unconscious wounds and using those wounds as leverage. But you've already faced your wounds. You've already made them conscious. So when someone tries to hook you through guilt, through shame, through fear of abandonment, through fear of being too much or not enough, those hooks find nothing to grab onto. You cannot be manipulated because you see the architecture beneath the performance. You cannot be controlled because you're anchored in yourself. You cannot be deceived because you read symbolic truth, not just literal words. You cannot be broken because you've already walked through your own shadow and returned with vision. And you cannot be silenced because your voice is no longer seeking approval, it's rooted in the self. And the self doesn't need permission to speak. This is the empath who emerges after the long night of self-abandonment. This is the empath who no longer hides in the emotional terrain of others. This is the empath who rises from the unconscious, not as a caretaker, but as a sovereign. So let me say this clearly. You are not a healer. You are not a fixer. You are not a caretaker. Those were roles you played when you didn't know who you were beneath them. You are a sovereign soul who perceives truth and lives from your center. Your sensitivity is not your burden, it's your vision. Your depth is not your wound, it's your wisdom. Your boundaries are not your walls, they're your dignity and your capacity to feel everything. That was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. Because in a world where most people are numb, distracted, dissociated from their own inner lives, your ability to feel is revolutionary. Your willingness to descend into emotional depths that most people avoid is what gave you access to wisdom they'll never touch. You didn't feel too much. You felt exactly what needed to be felt so you could transform it into consciousness. And that transformation, that's what makes you dangerous to every system built on unconsciousness, on denial, on avoidance. You have walked through the death of who you thought you had to be. And on the other side, you found who you always were. This is not the beginning of your journey. This is your arrival. And here's what you need to understand about this arrival. Your emergence is not just personal. It's archetypal. Every time an empath steps into wholeness, they activate a pattern in the collective unconscious. They become living proof that sensitivity doesn't have to mean suffering, that depth doesn't have to mean drowning, that feeling everything doesn't have to mean carrying everything. You are walking a path that countless others will walk after you. And the more consciously you walk it, the clearer the path becomes for everyone behind you. This is the empath awakening era, awakening, and you are not witnessing it. You are creating it. So take a breath, feel your body, notice where you are. This moment right here is the threshold. Everything you've learned, everything you've integrated, everything you've reclaimed, it all becomes real the moment you decide it does. The empath who awakens becomes a force of unimaginable depth, not because they become powerful, but because they become whole. And wholeness is the most powerful state a human being can inhabit. You are entering that wholeness now. The psyche knows the way. The soul has been waiting. And the self-silent ancient sovereign has finally stepped forward. Welcome to the era that has always belonged to you. If this video found you at exactly the right moment, it's not coincidence. It's synchronicity. Share it with someone standing at their own threshold. Comment below with one word that describes where you are in this journey, and subscribe because this community is where sovereign souls recognize each other. Your emergence is not just yours. It's a light in the collective darkness. And every person who watches you become whole remembers that they can too. Thank you for trusting this process. Thank you for trusting yourself. The world has been waiting for you to arrive.